All right, we are 2 minutes over. I'm going to get started and jump right in. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, Deep Diving into Double Core. My name is Elena. I lead our marketing organization here, and I'm going to be our host for this webinar series. I am joined today by a couple of my friends, but before I introduce them, I'm just going to do a few housekeeping items. First off, we are recording this session and we will send it out later in this week along with all the other double check sessions. We do plan to get it though updated on the landing page that hopefully you've seen today if you want to watch the recording. Also, we have 15 minutes carved out at the end for Q&A. So as you have questions, make sure you pop them in that Q&A box. Maddie on my team is going to be here and she's going to be managing those, and so we'll try and get to all those at the end as we can. As I mentioned, this is part of a larger double check webinar series that we're running at the end of the year. We're really trying to make sure that you know everything that we've done and that you are getting the most out of your double subscriptions, whatever they may be. So today we have the deep dive on core. Tomorrow we'll be going into plus, so everything you need for kind of exploring a more high touch advisory services plan. And then on Thursday, we'll be going deep into scale, which is kind of designed to help you handle the complex closes without burning out your top performers. So I am joined today by Sean Fielding and Lauren Getchy. Thank you so much for being here, Sean and Lauren. Sean, I also see there's a new title here on your intro box.
Yeah, some of y'all might know me from the customer success side. I've worked with a good chunk of the folks in the chat. I recognize some names, but I've since moved into product to hopefully make it a little bit better for each of you going forward. So yeah,
So look
bit of
forward to
overview.
next year's webinar and all Sean's product contributions.
Yeah, you'll
And
be hearing my
Lauren,
voice a lot.
I joined Double as a customer success manager back in 2023. And then at the beginning of this year, I changed positions and I am now our implementation team manager on the success team. So I manage our team of implementation specialists who help with onboarding, training, and all of that good stuff.
wonderful. Well, thank you both for taking the time and being here today. We have a packed agenda, so I want to dive right in. Before we go to the product stuff, I do want to talk just about the new plans that we've introduced in 2025. We'll then have Sean deep dive into some of the bigger features that we've released. So that'll be AI bank feeds, enhanced reconciliations, management reporting, refreshes that we've made, and then also some updates on the email side. And then Lauren will be doing sort of like a rapid fire little features, big impact section. That should give you just like a million things that you're like, I didn't even realize it could do that, is the goal. Well, hopefully actually you do, but you never know. All right, so this year our product and engineering teams have been very busy. As you hopefully know, we release a new product version of the product every single week. So if you're not getting those Thursday emails, make sure you're subscribed. I went and was chatting with our CTO Kenny this morning, and there have been 1,800 tweaks, improvements, and new features released this year, all driven by customer feedback and requests. So keep them coming on Canny. We are looking and we are building as fast as we can. And as I mentioned today, we will cover 4 big features and 8 smaller features. Critically, though, today we will only be talking about our core plan. So one of the big things that we introduced in 2025 was a new pricing model. Critically, none of the prices went up. Nothing changed in that regard. So if you've been paying us $10 a month, you're going to still be paying us $10 a month, and you're now getting even more. We've really just introduced new ways that we are kind of packaging up the product. So right, today's session we'll be talking about core and everything that's gone into that package. Tomorrow we'll be talking about plus, which is our $25 a month package. And then Thursday will be scale. Critically, these are all mix and match, which basically the idea being that if you have one client that needs a little bit more, you shouldn't have to pay for those features for everybody. So put that client on that and move on with your life and use core for everybody else. In order to like encourage you to try these and make it really easy, we are also running a promotion in December and January. So if you upgrade an existing client to a plus or scale package, we will issue you a refund on your invoice for the amount of that. So if you have a $10 client that you upgrade to a $25 plus, we will give you a $25 invoice credit. Upgrade it to scale, that's a $50 invoice credit. Get the point, you all know numbers well. All right, that's enough from me, really. I'm going to turn it over to Sean, and he is going to talk to you about our top core features of 2025.
Perfect. And just hang tight here. We'll share my screen and get going. Hopefully this is coming through clearly enough. Let me know
Looks
too if
great.
we should zoom. Perfect. So at the heart of Double is a ledger integration. That's sort of what makes us special and also powerful. Like, yes, we do workflow tracking, we do reporting, client communication, but really that ledger integration is what gives us so much power behind each of those tools. Previously, let's say last year, we were a little limited in exactly what we'd be able to do or interact with in the ledger. But since then, we've made a bunch of updates, specifically around bank feeds and bank transactions that aren't posted to the ledger yet, where now you can move this process into Double. So I'll show you all what this looks like and go over some of maybe the benefits of it and why you should hop in. So let's click into one of our clients here. Same old close page that you're familiar with our task management. But in the top left, you'll see bank feeds, where we can start initially posting those transactions. So a lot of you are going to be used to this default task, make sure all the transactions in the bank feeds are coded. Go into QuickBooks, do your transaction processing over there. Now it's much easier. You can do it directly in Double with bank feeds up top. And keep in mind, team, I'm not going to be going over absolutely every single in and out of each of these features, but I do want to give you a high-level picture of why they're so valuable and how you can get started with them. So on that topic of getting started with them, here in our bank feeds, we need to connect our bank accounts. We don't use the QBO bank integrations. We set them up directly here in Double. So you'll see accounts in the top right and can start getting those integrated. There's a few options for getting your accounts integrated. Signing in with credentials is easy, all too familiar with you, I'm sure. You can upload CSVs for any of those banks that don't integrate with third parties, or you can send client connection requests. This is incredibly valuable. I'm sure some of you work with banks that have maybe two sets of like login credentials. The client has the primary credentials, you've got the secondary credentials. Secondary ones don't work, so you have to ask the client to authenticate all the time. When we add these client connection requests, they'll just sit in our portal or our client's portal, and the client can go through that connection themselves. This way, if the integration ever breaks, we'll also remind them, let them know that they need to re-authenticate so that you can continue processing the bank feeds. So a bunch of options there for getting your transactions in or your bank feeds in. The next step is actually processing these transactions. So here, let's take a look at what our bank feeds look like. The first things that you'll notice is we like to bucket your transactions into these different groups to make batch processing easier, faster, more effective, and efficient for your team, instead of just this huge laundry list of transactions that are kind of detached from one another that you kind of have to play a sorting or filtering game to manage. So the first section you'll see is matches, transactions from the bank feeds that match your ledger already. These ones, we're generally just going to be confirming the match. That way we're not causing duplicate entries or such. Maybe on that topic of duplicate entries, by the way, this is not going to cause duplicates. You do not need to disconnect your QBO bank feeds to be able to run your bank feeds here in Double. If you process transactions in one system, the other system is going to see them as matches. But we also have a bit more of an integration where when you process transactions here in Double, we can clear them from your bank feeds in QBO, so there isn't any risk of any adverse effects here. But yeah, going back to our matches. So lines from the bank feeds that match existing transactions in our ledger that we can confirm. Sometimes you'll have maybe two transactions that look identical where we'll want you to select which transaction we should truly match to. You also get flexibility to find other transactions if for whatever reason we're not picking up a match, or maybe you have one line in your bank statement that matches two or three transactions in your ledger. You can certainly find other matches. Select all of them. You got the same resolve difference options that you're familiar with in QuickBooks and can confirm those matches. Now, this is the least exciting part of our bank feeds. You're all too familiar with matches, so we can move on to rules. We have rules similar to the way you'd set up bank feed rules in QuickBooks. We just set them up separately here in Double. Now, there literally has not been a better time to hop into our bank feeds. If you haven't gotten started, today is the best day to get started because very soon you're going to be able to import your rules from QuickBooks directly in here. When I say very soon, I mean matter of a couple days. So really good opportunity to get in. Again, you'll be able to import your rules from QuickBooks or you can set them up directly here in Double. Part of the advantage of that is our rules are a little bit more robust. So here in the top right, I can see or create rules. Let's add one. And just to show you how some of our logic is a little bit more advanced, typically a rule in QuickBooks is just if this happens, or if we see this data, let's post the transaction this way. Whereas here, we can add else ifs, which is sort of like, if this condition is met, let's post it this way. Otherwise, let's do thing two. So you can really build out some nice, robust bank rules. Also, when you're in the process of running through your bank transactions, beside any transaction, you can interact with it and directly create a rule based on it so that next time you see the transaction, it's a little easier to process. Here, again, we can just approve any of these transactions that meet the rules and sort of autofill for us. The other thing that you'll notice, though, and this actually applies to all the sections I'm about to run through, is we group your transactions by vendor and account, even within these sections. This is really nice because you don't have to sort, filter, or search through your bank feeds to find similar transactions to batch process. We've done it all for you across the entire feed. So here, for example, I see all of my Google ads that are in advertising and marketing. I can bulk select all of those transactions, post all 18 at the time without manually clicking so many times and giving myself maybe some hand strain. So batch processing, really easy. We take a lot of the sorting and filtering work out for you. Okay, with rules out of the way, we can move into some of the more exciting parts of the bank feeds. I promise it always gets better. So if I put you to sleep already, this is a good time to pay attention. Auto classifications. This is where we'll help analyze your ledger from historic months, use the way that you've posted previous transactions as a basis for maybe how you should process these upcoming transactions from your bank feeds. Make sure they're consistent. So if a client ever changes hands between multiple teammates, they'll all be processing the feeds largely the same. Or maybe if you're just on an off day or tired, we'll make sure you're still consistent here. So our auto classifications. These are lines from the bank feeds that look like they've only been posted one way to your ledger before. They are 100% consistent. So generally, we can post these with a pretty high degree of confidence. Again, like I was saying, we'd love to bucket these transactions by vendor and account, so you can really quickly whip through these bulk processing actions. And then the other thing you're going to notice in each of these sections is just visually, the information is really dense. I've got my screen actually amazingly zoomed in here, but you could see all the information, the relevant information I need to process the transactions is just in a few columns here instead of spread across the screen. So from my experience, when I'm processing transactions outside of the system, I have to drag my head back and forth again and again to go through those hundreds and hundreds of transactions. You don't really have to do that here. The information is exactly where you need to see it. It's a much quicker experience. So hopefully adding some efficiency to there. Moving down the list, we'll see another auto classification section for medium confidence. In truth, this one's pretty rare. These are transactions that have only been posted one way historically, but something looks a little off. Maybe you're using a different bank account for the transaction, but again, the bank descriptor looks the same, the category looks the same. We still want to call these out to you, just in case you want to do a bit more diligence, but pretty high confidence for your posting as well. Promise it gets better, so last two sections. For review, uncertain transactions. So these are lines in your bank feeds that maybe have been posted multiple ways in the past, and we're not 100% confident how you should post them going forward. So with these transactions, here we could see maybe my statement descriptor, where I posted it to Amazon and Walmart historically. I don't know why. I've got Walmart there in the descriptor. It probably should make a little bit more sense than that. But here I can click in to any of the suggestions, see our AI search, use those historical transactions, and then you could select which it truly belongs in, and then post and approve the transaction. So the uncertain ones, just transactions that we're not 100% confident, and we'll need you to do a little digging. The last bucket is the most important, the most exciting part, and really what gives us the AI functionality here, though, new vendors. So transactions we absolutely don't recognize. What we're going to do here is we're going to read the text from your bank descriptor and help take a guess at what vendor should be assigned to the transaction and also what category you should use for it. Now, typically, if I'm running a bank feed, I'm going to look at that descriptor. I'm going to scan through the text and find out, I see cursor there. Maybe that's the vendor. I'm going to go look up their website, maybe beat my head around the table a little bit, and then figure out eventually what this should be categorized as. Instead, when I get this transaction, you can see we've got Insight already picking up that it's probably Cursor. I can click to the left of that transaction. We'll show you our AI reasoning. So we've done this web crawl for you, found vendor's Cursor. Here's a link to their website if you'd like to review. Here's the expense account that we expect it to be posted to, and a nice explanation below so that you can, again, maybe use that as a reference if maybe you wanted to change the expense account around if something looks off. This is really nice, and honestly, you'll just have to play with it to see the full value of it, but we're really consistent at picking up the correct vendor, at doing our AI search and suggesting meaningful ways to post your transactions. So you'll see a lot of speed and efficiency improvements here. All right, that's largely everything I wanted to show for the bank feeds. There's a million other things I'm sure I could, but in the sake of time, I'll keep moving. So I mentioned earlier how we can sync your your cleared status of transactions from Keeper or Double, here into QuickBooks. Yeah, I'm still learning too, guys. And that all hinges on this Chrome or Edge extension. I really recommend everyone get it. We'll send you a link. Please download it. It doesn't hurt at all. It just sits in the background of your browser, but it lets us get through a lot more functionality with our ledger integration. So with this extension, once we're finished all of our bank transaction processing here, we'll sync that cleared status into QuickBooks so that you don't have to process the transactions twice or match them in both places. And that's a really good way for me to segue into our second big upgrade of the year, improved reconciliations. So let's go back to our client close page where we're running that month end and seeing all of our closing tasks. There were typically two tasks that you're familiar with doing in QuickBooks. One of them is posting your transactions, what we just went through, the bank feeds. And then the second is reconciling your accounts. Now, QuickBooks is not going away for this. You're still going to do your reconciliation in QuickBooks. We're just going to make it a lot more visible and easy for you to review and see that these were done properly here in Double. The goal here is for reviewers, managers, business owners. You don't have to go into QuickBooks once throughout the close to see that the work was done properly, on time, nothing was missed. And right now in the version of the software that you might be familiar with, you might be struggling with that and finding yourself needing to go into QuickBooks to see a lot of this extra info. So maybe to explain this, beside each of our accounts here, which are really just tasks that we're checking off as we do our rec in QuickBooks, you'll see this date, last reconciled transaction. Everyone's got their qualms with it. It's a little bit misleading. This is the last transaction that was part of your reconciliation. When you have accounts that aren't used every day of the month, maybe the statement ends early, like on the 15th for credit cards, maybe the account wasn't used at all this month, but you've truly done a rec for it. You see this date and it's a little bit behind, like October 22nd. And for me, if I were reviewing books, this might make me double take and actually open up QuickBooks to see that nothing got missed. So that hinges off truly the last transaction that was reconciled. But if you get our Chrome or Edge extension, which again, really recommend, it's going to look a little different. So here I'm going to head into my settings, workflows, just for this recording. And we have this little option here to turn on statement balances with our Chrome extension. Now our screen's going to look slightly different, where beside each of these account reconciliation tasks, it's not October 22nd anymore. It is my reconciled through period that's syncing from QuickBooks. So the end of the month, truly. Beside it, we've got that balance in our account at end of month. And further to the right, we've actually got our statement balance that we reconciled against. For a reviewer or a manager, this should be absolutely everything you'd need to see to know that the rec was done properly. So again, not having to hop back into QuickBooks for any of this. It gets better. We'll even attach supporting documentation, your work papers for those recs, to the tasks directly from QuickBooks. So here, I've got my reconciliation report in case I wanted to review it with a little bit more detail. So again, for reviewers, managers, really leveled up the reconciliations. You get full visibility here. And then for the team that is actually processing the reconciliations themselves, this is not causing extra work. They're not manually inputting numbers here into our task or manually moving files around. When they're in QuickBooks doing a reconciliation, things are going to look just the same as they're used to. So I'm going to kind of feign a reconciliation here. The big difference is once I'm finished with my rec, you'll see a pop-up given that you have the extension. This is now going to sync our statement balance, our statement end date that we reconciled against, and it's going to link us to a rec report, which I can directly upload to my task. Totally done, move on to the next rec. Everything is shared with the rest of the team to see that these were done properly. So huge step up on the reconciliations. I really want to double down that get our extension. It is fantastic, not just for the bank feeds, also the reconciliations, and it's got a whole ton more functionality packed into it too. Okay, let's hop back to those account reconciliations. There's only a couple other things I want to quickly mention. One is there are certain accounts that you want to reconcile, but you're not doing a rec in QuickBooks. Maybe you're reconciling them against another piece of software or against a fixed number that doesn't change every month. So for any of these accounts, you can actually click in now to these reconciled through periods or ending balance amounts, and you can overwrite them yourself if you wanted. So as a user, they can provide this backup, even if it isn't a QBO integrated bank account. All right, with that, I think we're ready to talk about reports. So let's hop into the third big release of this year, which is a report refresh for our financials. I'm going to hop into our client portal and show off what these look like. So from the client perspective here, in their portal, they've got a little financial section if you're publishing through Double. And here's maybe what a report would look like. I'm just going to scroll through it a little bit and then highlight some of the updates that we've made. Now, some of these will be things like image pages. A lot of people have been asking for a picture of my puppy. This is him, Indy. So you can include images or just whatever you'd like in these reports. There's a lot more flexibility there. We've got our executive summary with high-level digestible information for clients. And then as we scroll down into the statements themselves, you're just going to notice a night and day difference over our previous reports. I'm going to open up one of those previous reports to kind of bash our old version a little bit here. This is what they used to look like. There's no line separation, like highlights between different rows in our financial statements. The alignment of accounts is a little bit tough to read in full discretion. The column sort of organization or adjustments just don't really look right a lot of the time. Now they do. The other thing that you'll notice is there's a lot of spacing between accounts in these previous reports. So we could only fit some, I don't know, maybe 20 lines into the same statement, into the same page. Whereas now it's a lot more dense. Spacing is much better, much clearer for clients, looks much more professional. So whether you're CPAs or not, really good opportunity to publish an accounting-like report here. I'm just going to scroll through what I've got in this example. So by the way, for anyone who hasn't used our reporting yet, these are very customizable. Building year-to-date versus prior year-to-date kind of reports is possible, breaking these down by class. We even support things like budgets against actuals now. So if you've got a budget set up in QuickBooks, we can sync that in, build some stellar reports based on them. And one of the recent updates that we made here is that you can now customize report titles. Let's say you have a couple P&Ls for the same client that you're publishing each month. Maybe one's a year-to-date with a percent of income, and then maybe another is a year-to-date against prior year-to-date. Previously, they both have the same title. It's a little bit misleading and confusing to clients. Now you can customize and really come up with titles of your own. Add some distinction to each of these. Other updates that we've made on our reports, though. Let's talk about interactive financials, meeting clients where they are showing them what they need to see and giving them some power to adjust the reports themselves. Now you have these options for publishing interactive financials, and from the client perspective, they'll get visibility into, let's say, a P&L or balance sheet that you share, and they can play with the format themselves. This is going to be really familiar to that final review P&L section that you're used to in the close page, where here I can click into accounts to drill into the vendor level. I can customize the report myself, maybe adjust the amount of months that are showing up, the way that they're displayed, export this to a CSV if I wanted. That way, for you all, clients maybe don't have to ask you for a second or third report again and again. Every time they want a little tweak, they can make these adjustments themselves. So the same will apply for our balance sheet. And then the last piece of interactive financials is metrics. If you all haven't dabbled in metrics, they're a lot of fun. They're really quick to produce once you get into the swing of it. And then they don't really require any maintenance month over month. but you can give really nice insights that beat the P&L or balance sheet. So here I've got a few that I've set up just as examples. Maybe here I'm showing a margin that's a little bit high, a target, and then a gap against my target. I've got some graphics as well. And for the client, they can click or hover into any of these metrics and see the values that make up them. It's not just a PDF that's published with a maybe a line on it that's really hard to see the exact figure to. For anyone who has played with our metrics before, by the way, there's a lot of updates that maybe you haven't noticed. Typically, they would show 12 months at a time, always. Now you can adjust for just single months, maybe do like year-to-date sort of metrics. There's a lot more formatting options to really like spruce these reports up. All right, so that kind of summarizes what the report updates are. Now, I also want to put this into maybe more like practical terms on all of your use case in Double. So some of you are already publishing reports. Maybe you're using another app for them. Maybe you're using QuickBooks. Maybe you're using Excel. Big advantage to using Double for reporting is it is super quick to publish these. Once you come up with your template or your structure for a client, it is there, set in stone. It's going to roll forward month over month. And for the user, literally 3 clicks to publish these. Reporting at the top of our page, where you'll see our month-end package. In the top right, we've got this publish option, and I just add it to my client portal this way. There's also options for emailing these directly to clients, downloading them as a PDF if you wanted to just send it or save it externally. But I personally like the portal, so you get these nice interactive bits. But it is literally 3 clicks to publish these. Some of you might not be publishing reports for clients right now. Maybe it just takes too long. Maybe you feel like your clients aren't going to read them, but why not level up your service? It doesn't take you any extra time. It gives more value to the clients. Maybe they're only going to check out a P&L once or twice a year, but it is still once or twice that you don't have to go into QuickBooks and manually print them off. So a lot more value here, not much more time for you. All right, I want to keep this moving so I can give Lauren some time and leave some for Q&A. And we're going to tie this all together back in our client dashboard. Here's where we get a summary of all of our clients and how we're tracking across their work. So the couple things that I've mentioned so far are around AI bank feeds, reconciliations, and reporting. Just so you all know here, you can pin a lot of that data to your main client list. You've got this little view drop down at the top of the list and a sort of Excel looking icon. And you'll see we have a few more options for customizations. So this is how we can add columns or remove columns from our client dashboard. And sorry, I've got a good ton. But you'll see columns for maybe bank information, like number of outstanding transactions or when we last posted transactions. So I can get a nice high-level feel for if my team's on top of these things. Also visibility into those published financials that we were just looking at. So as soon as I publish one to the portal, we'll see the month end that we published through here. And that way for managers, you truly know these reports were delivered. This is not a box that got checked, maybe when the report actually didn't get published. This is a source of truth. There is a living, breathing October 2025 report available for my client. So from this screen, we can move into the big fourth feature I wanted to talk about, which is our inbox integration. And some of you may be using this. Some of you might not even know it exists. The Double that some of you may be used to is outward notifications only. So when we send questions to your clients, we send them that link to the portal, they click it, they see their questions, they give you answers. It is just sending emails to clients though, not necessarily receiving them from clients. We can do that now. So let's head up to inbox at the top. This is where we could connect or see any of our integrated inbox accounts. If you haven't gone through this yet, when you click in for the first time, you'll see a bright button to authorize, give us permission to read emails, and then everything that already exists in your inbox account will sync in. This is truly just like your inbox. So the idea here is that you can manage it entirely in Double, which means creating emails if I wanted. I've got access to templates, can set up signatures, select contacts that exist in the app, or just type in emails and send them that way. So it is truly an integration with your existing inbox. And a lot of the setup that you've done in that existing inbox is going to port over here too. So if you're using custom labels or folders, all of that's going to sync back and forth. If you read an email here, it'll be read in your conventional browser. Same idea. So why is this better than using another app for your emails? One, you don't have to use another app for your emails. Two, it is included in your core package. There's no pricing here for that firm inbox that you've got connected. Now you can connect additional inboxes if you wanted, but for that one that you've already got integrated, you could authorize it right now. There's no change on your bill. And then some of the advantages to this is, let's say I get an email from a client and I need to ticket it out to a teammate as a task. I need them to work on it. I could forward that email to a teammate, then go and create a task. These two are not talking to each other. I don't really get visibility into if my team has addressed the email or not. Let's knock them both out at the same time. So I just bought my dog a little coat yesterday, and PetSmart has been spamming me. Let's say with this email, I wanted to ticket it out to a teammate as a task. In the top right, I can add a task. Here, I can select the client the task is related to, select a project where I want to see that in, assign it to a teammate, give it a due date and such. And just like this, I've really ticketed out the email. It is much better than forwarding an email though. So let's go into our client and show you why. Perfect. So here's our client. Here's this task that I just created from the email, like a conventional task, but it links back to that source email. So as a user actually going through this, I can reference that initial email. I could reply to it here if I wanted. I can check off, resolve the task. It's all integrated, layered in together. The other nice thing that you can do with any of these emails is comment internally. That little chat bubble that hopefully some of you are aware of, where you can add little internal notes or review notes as you run through your close. It's available with emails too. And yeah, you can add those comments, tag each other, and share the inbox or messages this way. The other really nice piece to this from a management perspective is visibility to see that your team is truly addressing emails from clients. So some of you may not be familiar with tasks here in the top left of Double. This is where you can see all of your tasks or maybe come up with views for daily to-dos or check-ins on payrolls and such. So there's a lot of tasks that live here, but you can also create saved views that just search for things like tasks linked to emails, these high priority, really time sensitive things. This way, in the morning, I can check in my tasks from email view, see all of these items that were linked to emails, who was assigned to them, when they were due, and maybe ping some people or address them myself if things are slipping through the cracks. It's a really nice visibility there. Let's go back to the inbox for a second. Mention a couple other quick things. Visibility for your team. You get a lot of settings controls over this. If you integrate your inbox account, but maybe you don't want to give the whole team access to it, that is absolutely a-okay fine. In our practice settings, where we see our users, you'll see a little section for emails here, and you can configure who gets access to the firm inbox that you've got connected, who's allowed to integrate their own personal inbox, exactly what they should and shouldn't be able to see by user. There's also one last piece here that I'd really like to show off, which is within the client, seeing that email history. So here I am in my client. Typically, best practice, use the portal as much as you can. It integrates with your ledger. That is the fastest way to deal with transaction questions and such. But maybe I still want to reference, did I send this email out to my client yesterday? I kind of forgot. Or did they send me something? Maybe I need to address it here. So when we go into our portal in the client page, you'll also have access to this email history in the top right. And this is going to be all your communication between your clients and yourself or your team, any of those integrated inboxes. I'm only asking myself questions here, so it's not all that exciting. But yeah, if I had inbound messages from my client, I'd see them here. I could, again, ticket them out as tasks, see if I've sent emails. Don't have to hobble back to the inbox screen to see any of this. All right, last couple things, actually last single thing I'll say. I mentioned this earlier. You can connect multiple inbox accounts if you want to go above just that firm inbox, which means when you send emails out of Double, you could pick which inbox you'd like to send from. Now, this is an add-on feature. It's priced at $10 per additional inbox that you connect if you wanted to. But again, totally optional. The firm inbox itself is free. I honestly don't see a reason why you wouldn't upgrade to get that two-way sync. So probably a good idea for anyone who hasn't made the jump just yet. And with that, I think I'm ready to pass it over to Lauren for some maybe smaller improvements that go a long way.
Thank you, Sean. That was awesome. I'm gonna jump in for 1 minute. There was like questions flying around everywhere. But one of the biggest ones on bank feeds that I just want to touch on super quick is basically, can you talk a little bit more about the QBO integration and like when we start importing rules, are those going to override them? And then also like, what does it look like if you have them connected in both? What's the best practice there?
Yeah, really good questions. So let's share my screen again. So you can absolutely have your bank accounts or your bank feeds connected to both QBO and Double without worrying about duplicating transactions and such. Part of the reason is, again, like if you're processing a transaction here and then go into QuickBooks, it's going to show up as a match there and you're not going to double enter it. But like I was saying earlier, get our extension. That way we can sync the cleared status from Double into QBO. So there's absolutely no risk, absolutely no double entry over there. Yeah, is really seamless on that end. And sorry, Elena, there was a second part of that question that escaped me.
And when we're importing rules, are we going to override them or like how is that going to work?
Yeah, really good question too. So we're not going to change your rules that exist in QuickBooks, meaning if you have auto post rules that like truly post the transactions without your review, instead of just suggesting ways to post them, you may want to disable those just so you can use our rules instead. But you can still keep your rules, that exist in QuickBooks. When we import them here into Double, and by the way, just for a bit of a sneak peek preview of what you'll all see in a couple short days, we'll have a bulk import option here. It is exactly just export your rules from QuickBooks, drag them in, totally synced up, good to go. So yeah, not going to be an issue with any like redundant rules here, and you don't have to go and configure your ones in QuickBooks, other than maybe disabling the auto post ones, which are just inherently a little dangerous.
All right, perfect. There are lots more questions and we are monitoring them, but I want to make sure that we have time for Lauren to cover all of the what are we calling? Little features, big impact. I will just throw that slide up really quickly here so you can get a little sneak preview of what she's going to go into.
Yeah.
Lauren, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Lena. Yeah, as a reminder too, quick reminder that everything we're going over today is part of the core plan. So we are not discussing anything today that are on the plus or scale plans. Everything covered in today's webinar is part of the core plan at $10 per client per month. Connected client, I should say, to either QuickBooks or Xero. And the other thing to note is that everything we're going over today is a live feature as of today. So if you're not seeing anything on your account that mirrors ours, I would recommend logging out and logging back in if you haven't done that for a minute. And I will note that a couple of things I'm about to go over were released today. So especially if you're not seeing them, try that quick troubleshooting. And as Elena mentioned, everything I'm about to go over builds on an existing feature. The tweaks we've made, though, have a major impact on being able to run your month-end close in Double. So I'm really excited to show you a few of these. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Another thing to note is that, as we've mentioned a few times, if you can try to remember to put your questions in the chat. I mean, sorry, not the chat, the Q&A. We're more likely to see them than the chat. Okay, great. So when you log into Double, you see your client list. This has always been your dashboard that's meant to provide a high-level overview of your clients and where they stand essentially regarding the month-end close process. You've been able to customize this dashboard. For instance, mine, you can tell, looks a little bit different than Sean's just did, but there were a few restrictions, especially in regards to kind of the visual components or the user interface. So as of today, this was a feature, what I'm about to go over, some of it was in beta, but as of today, it's released to the general public. We have increased the ability to make your dashboard even more customizable. So the first thing you can do now is with the columns that you see here, first of all, you can adjust the length of them. So previously, I know, for instance, Ready for Manager Review was a little clunky. Now you can extend this if you'd like to see that full title. And you can also drag and drop the order of the columns easily. So those are two major updates. There's also a couple that are related to your practice level settings. If you go to this workflow tab, you can also have an option that when your close is marked as complete, that it highlights. And we also have the ability to hide your uh, what am I trying to say? Hide your incompleted tasks. So those are all available in your practice level settings. Those might have moved on me today. Apologies. Oh, here we go. Client list done highlight. So you can have it on, meaning if you mark your close as done, even if you haven't completed every single task, you can still have the row default to green. You can have it on, meaning only when the tasks are marked done, or you can completely turn that off. Great. Okay. So those are all in relation to the client list. Make sure if you're adjusting things on your client list that you always save the view. And so that way you don't have to, each time you log in, rearrange things and make those adjustments. What I'm next going to jump into is some features that are all tied to your client's close page. So I'm going to go into my client here. And this has always essentially kind of been one of the major core features of Double, right? So one place to see the entire month-end close workflow for your client, whether it's tasks, whether it's client communication, documentation, file storage, all of the above. Previously, you might have to kind of scroll through the page to find what you're looking for if you are looking to quickly add a task or upload a file or things like that. There was kind of a specific space for all of those, and there still is. However, we have now released this quick add menu, which is going to allow you to immediately take quick action for a variety of workflow pieces. So on the left-hand side, you'll see internally you can add a task, whether that is custom or closing. We also have the ability to quickly upload a file or create a client note. And then you can also create a transaction from the right-hand side of the menu. So maybe you want to create an expense. You can also add a file here, whether that's a receipt or anything else you'd like. And that way you're not having to scroll through the close page to find where those specific pieces of your workflow go. So really lesser known feature, but really quick time saver in terms of being able to quickly add things. One of the things that I called out in the quick add menu is client notes. So this has always been a feature, or it's been a feature, I should say, for a while. But what we have updated is the ability to create templates for these notes. So the idea here is maybe you're having a call with a client. For whatever reason, you want to make a quick note, document what that conversation looked like, or maybe SOPs for your team in regards to that client's month-end close workflow. We now have the ability to have templates. So let's say you're hopping on a customer call, you can quickly come in here and select that template, and then it's going to populate a lot of that information for you. That way you don't have to maybe go find an old note, copy and paste, start from scratch. So this is going to be a game changer in terms of how quickly you can create a note and get going on that. Something to note is that templates are across the firm. So if you do want to create those note templates, you'll need to come to the template section. And then you'll want to come to the notes section. And this is where you can create that template. Don't forget that when you're creating a template in Double, you always want to label the template, title it, and put text in the body. Otherwise, you won't be able to save that template. All right, I'm moving and grooving, so I'm going to keep going. As you go through your close page, we organize it by your custom tasks, and then we have your month-end closing tasks. The third or fourth, I should say, section on your close page is this transaction review. By default, we have some transaction review reports that allow you to basically review transactions that need attention for a variety of reasons. The title of these reports usually indicate what that reason is. One of our default reports has been expenses and bills without attachments over $0. You've always been able to customize this threshold, but a lot of our users wanted to be able to see all transactions, or any type of transaction, I should say, not just limited to expenses and bills that do not have an attachment. That is available today. You currently need to add it as a custom report. So while you are in the transaction review section, you would click Add Report in the lower left-hand corner, and this would be considered a custom report. A default report would be any of these 7 that you see by default when you add a client to Double. Note that 0 clients do have slightly fewer, but this is standard 7 default reports for QBO clients. So you would click Add Custom Report. We're going to title it accordingly. Transactions without attachments. And you are simply going to say has attachment is false. You're going to go ahead and save that, and it's going to pull any transaction type. As you can see, I have journal entries, mostly journal entries here, but I have a bill too. So any transaction doesn't have to be an expense or bill that is missing an attachment. Great. Okay. I'm going to continue down to the next section of our reports, which is payee entity review reports. Our Prepare 1099 report has always been one of our most popular reports because it allows you to manage the 1099s process throughout the entire year instead of waiting till the end of the year, that kind of December, January pile up. I know sometimes people are confused. Why do you have Prepare 1099s as a monthly task? We file in January. The reason why is because this report is going to flag those vendors as soon as they hit that $600 threshold. You can then immediately start reaching out to either your clients or the vendors themselves to collect those W-9s if needed. So as a quick reminder, that is why it's considered a monthly task here in Double. What we've done throughout this year is added a few little tweaks here and there to basically increase visibility about some of those important vendor details. This is where a lot of those updates that I mentioned happened today came through. So first and foremost, you'll always want to note that when we tell Double that a 1099 is not needed, you can always select into filing not needed and click no. And then we're always just going to move it over here to the 1099 not needed tab. One of the updates that we recently made is now you can do the entity type. So maybe you want to make a note about why the 1099 was not needed. You can come in here to entity type and you can select the type, and you can also add a note now. So this is one, and I would say one way to kind of document internally why a 1099 is not needed, and you can even add notes to make that more detailed. Going back to the For Review tab, as a reminder, if a vendor is marked as yes, track 1099s in QuickBooks, it will default to yes here in Double as well. If that box is not checked in QuickBooks, that's why we leave it as unknown here in Double. And if you are updating it to yes here in Double because maybe they're new, that will also update in QuickBooks. Please note that when you select yes, you'll now be able to select filing type. Our default report is for NEC and MISC. If you want to create a different type of report, like a 1099 INT, we consider that a custom report, and I'll show you how to do that momentarily. You can still fill out the entity type and still fill out notes, even if they are left as unknown or yes for their filing status. So just to reiterate, this report is bidirectionally syncing with QuickBooks. We have added the entity type column to allow you to document what the entity type is, whether or not they need one. And then if you'd like to add additional details, we now have this notes column. Filing needed is technically tied to that bidirectional sync with QuickBooks, but as a reminder, QuickBooks only allows you to mark yes, which is why Double has the unknown. And if you say no, you can view all of those vendors that you've said no to here, and you can update if you made a mistake. Okay. Lastly, one thing to note is that we do allow you to export this currently to a simple CSV, but we also export to Track 1099 and Tax 1099, meaning it would format the CSV to be compatible with their requirements for filing. The notes column is not currently going to export with that CSV, just a heads up. That is, you can think of that as kind of an internal double documentation piece. Okay, that was everything I had, but I'll pause in case there's anything I can clarify, Elena or Sean, that I missed.
Yes, we've definitely had questions coming in. Also, a lot of love for all the 1099 improvements.
Great.
And so I'm
Oh,
happy to do that. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
need to show you guys how to create a custom report. I just realized.
But wait, there's more.
You'll come down here to add report, just like we did for the transactions without attachments. And it's going to be a custom 1099 report. I'll put in here. And our help, it does link to our Help Center article, by the way, when you do that. And then you'll just need to come in here and select the 1099 type. And these are all of the different types of custom reports you can create.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. All right.
Mhm.
I am going to take back over the screen and we are going to try and get through as many of these questions as we can. I will also say that we have been tracking these, and if we don't get to the question that you have, we will we're making sure that we track everything that we don't cover, and we will reach back out at some point and answer that question for you. So fret not if we do not get to your question. All right. I am gonna put up a slide that says Q&A. Just as a reminder, everything that we have covered today, there's been a couple of call outs of more premium features, but everything that we've gone deep on is in the core package. We will send you the recording, and we can now deep dive into the mass quantities of questions that we got. So Sean, we had a lot of questions about bank feeds coming in. The one thing I didn't also ask you to touch on is, could you chat a little bit more about where we are on the zero side of the house here, and what our plan is there on bank feeds, but also if you have any other insights that you want to share.
Yeah, so kind of tough one to answer. Zero is a different beast than QuickBooks. Like overall, we do hope to bring all of the functionality we were showing off today into Zero. They just have a very different way of processing bank transactions, kind of coupled with their reconciliations than QBO supports. So kind of a work in progress. But things like improved financial reports, bank feeds, definitely on our radar. Just don't have a timeline update that I can share quite yet.
Okay. Thank you. I realize that it's not a great answer, but at least we're trying. Lauren, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I also wanted to note that I previously mentioned everything's core that we went over today, live as of today. But also, I briefly touched on this, but to reiterate, it's for connected clients, meaning you've connected them to either QuickBooks or Xero. So if you didn't see some of the reports I was just going through on the close page, it's highly likely that that customer, or excuse me, that that client is not connected to an ERP. So if you're not seeing anything that we went through today, but you were expecting to, please reach out to our support team.
Okay, there we go. All right. With that said, Sean, there's a couple of very specific questions on the extension. Basically, if people are having troubles getting that updated from an old one, and then also for anybody that also uses Edge, what's the availability there?
So Edge absolutely works with our extension. Same functionality you'll see in either browser. There's a few other small browsers that also use what they call Chromium, which supports extensions, and you would be able to use it there. But you can absolutely get it on Edge.
Okay.
Um,
And then if people are having if the Chrome extension is being a little wonky for them, what would you recommend?
Generally, signing out of it and then signing back into it will work just fine. So here I'll share my screen to show this if
Yeah,
that's
go
fine.
for it. I'm gonna pass the next question to you too, so you just keep that screen.
Awesome. Okay. So hopefully you can see this. If you click your Chrome extension when you've got it in your browser, and sorry, this is a little tough to share because extensions kind of shows different tabs. But if you click your extension in your browser, you'll see a little logout button. Generally, signing out, signing back in is going to refresh to the latest version. You have access to everything you'd like. If not, you may have to click that extension and just remove it, then re-add it to your browser. But
Okay.
hopefully signing out works.
Turn it off and back on in some way, shape, or form. Always
Will
the
do.
best tech advice. All right. So Sean, I'm going to keep it on you for reconciliations. If it is re-reconciled, will the previous rec report be overwritten?
Really good question. No, it won't overwrite the rec report. It would just attach an additional rec report to the task. So instead of seeing
Okay.
one here, a couple.
Any tips on if that happens?
It may actually be nice to see the historic rec reports. You may not want to get rid of it at all, but if you do, once you have two files in there, you click in, you could just select that file here on the right and delete the old one. It's only the most recent shows.
Okay. Sean, there was actually quite a few questions. When you popped up your, I think it was your client list, you had a column there called industry that there's been a lot of interest in.
Yeah, so the client list is a lot more robust than meets the eye when you first play around with this. You can really think of this like an Excel sheet where you can add columns, remove columns. You can drag them around and make the list look however it would best work for you. Um, so this is called a property. Maybe we can send some resources after the call on how you can create what we call
Definitely.
properties, and then you're able to pin them to our client list. And again, this is just going to be a little tough for you to remember if I show you live here, but there's a little Excel icon at the top. You can
Ah,
input data, you can filter, search, create your own custom views for just those specific client subsets. And that way you don't have to continuously filter and refilter your reports to see those different boards.
awesome. Perfect. All right. So I'm gonna have one more for you, Sean, and then I think I'm gonna turn it over to Lauren. For emails, there's some questions basically about like permissioning and like can other people see other people's emails, and then also questions around the ability to kind of respond within that and make sure that you're tracking things in there.
Love it. So firstly, on the security side, yes, there's absolutely a handful of permission options where you can pick and choose who gets access to what. So in our overall settings, and then the manage user section, you folks will see this little email tab where you can make configurations. So the first column here, personal inbox access, means is this user allowed to connect their own personal account and integrate it here? Going to the right, we'll see practice inboxes. So these are our shared firm inboxes that we have connected. And you can pick and choose who gets access to firm inboxes, which of the firm inboxes they get access to, or none at all. And then this box on the right, client email history, is like a filtered version of the inboxes that are connected, just showing the team communication between their clients and that inbox, kind of like I was showing off when we were in our client's email history here. And then around sending emails, when you've got inboxes connected here, whenever you go to create an email, you can select your inbox that you'd like to send from. You can set up signatures, email templates. It really does function just like the email service you're currently using.
Perfect. All right. I know, Sean, that I promised to take you out of the hot seat. We are at time, so if people have to drop off, I thank you so much for coming. We are going to reach back out with some answers to your additional questions. If you want to learn more about our Plus and Scale packages, join us tomorrow for a deep dive into Plus, which will be receipts and AI financial summaries, and on Thursday for Scale, which will talk about accruals and AI transactions, which is journal entries and bills. That will be with Jillian, our head of product. So we'll answer maybe one more question here, but we will share all these links. And thank you guys all again so much for coming and taking the time and for being wonderful double users. And if we don't see you again this year, we will see you next year.
One
All
thing
right.
One
Yeah.
thing I wanted to shout out, Elena, is if you are interested in hopping on a call to have some training about any of these features or updates, please reach out to your CSM or implementation specialist if you have one. If you don't, absolutely no worries. That's what my team is here for. Reach out to the support team via the widget and let them know you are interested in a call, and we will send you the link to get that scheduled.
Awesome. All right, so maybe one question for both of you. Sean, I think if you could just touch quickly on customizing metrics and basically like how do you change names? How do you like maybe remove some of the other things that are on there?
Yeah.
2 seconds.
So in truth, this one's probably more than I can answer in a simple Q&A. We have some great
Okay.
resources on it in our help center or just right into our chat support. They're excellent.
Basically, great question. Very complex answer.
More than
Um,
1 minute.
for the moment, which is fair. I mean, with great amount of customization comes a great amount of customization. Lauren, I think for you there were some questions that I'm no longer seeing here, but basically, can you just show off the template for are we able to template the W-9 vendor request email?
Yeah, so I think something really helpful to go over in general is the templates that are available within Double. My favorite way to access them is here. But as a reminder, you can always go to your client list if you're ever lost within Double and see all of those items up here as well. So if you go to templates, these are all of the things you can template within Double. Emails would be here, and then you would go to vendor emails. The W-9 request one, it has this lock. That simply means it's a default report. You can add extra text if you'd like to update it or customize it. Just make sure you hit save when you do that. And you can customize any of our default templates that way. You can also create additional templates with the plus sign here. As a reminder, don't forget to give it a subject and put something in the body, and then you'll have the ability to save it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Lauren. Sean already had to jump. He's got just such an in-demand person. Thank you everybody again. And we will, let me get those links to post in the chat right now for tomorrow and Thursday. If you don't see them, you will see promotions all over the product about the promotion that we're running for December and January. And to learn more here, there is a landing page that has the links to all of these webinars that we're running, as well as details on that promotion. So there, Maddie just posted those, and please register and come and see more of the double team. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully, and thank you again so much. Bye.